Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are looking at a truly fascinating set of documents. We're going to see exactly how a hyper-local, everyday problem actually birthed a massive, national-scale idea about technology, economics, and honestly, our personal privacy. We're exploring a trio of letters that outline this revolutionary concept called the Canadian Data Dividend. And what's just so incredible about the story is that it doesn't kick off in some fancy corporate boardroom or a high-tech Silicon Valley lab. No, it starts in a 51-unit seniors housing building in Wetaskiwin, in Alberta, with residents who were really just trying to feel safe in their own homes.
Okay, let's dive into this. The catalyst for this entire digital philosophy is rooted in very real human stakes. We are absolutely not talking about abstract policy here. We are talking about vulnerable seniors dealing with some deeply unsettling incidents. We're talking about a situation where a tenant's personal property was literally slashed with a blade, and obscene messages were left right on their doors. It's terrifying, right? Naturally, the residents banded together. They signed a petition simply asking for basic security cameras to be installed so they could protect themselves.
Section 1. The Wetaskiwin Dilemmas.
So, when these residents petitioned for a safer environment, they hit a massive bureaucratic roadblock. It's a wall that people living in government-connected or social housing hit all the time, unfortunately. Building management came back with three very definitive objections. First, there was simply zero budget for physical security cameras. Second, even if they somehow got the cameras, there was absolutely no budget for the building-wide Wi-Fi infrastructure needed to actually run them. And third, they stated plainly that the government of Alberta, which oversees this assisted living portfolio, simply does not fund these types of capital improvements. So the residents were left at a complete standstill. The need was obviously urgent, but the money, it just wasn't there.
Well, enter Wayne Davies. Now, Wayne isn't your average tenant. He's a 67-year-old retired software developer, co-author of a Substack called The Signatory, and most importantly, he lives right there in this exact 51-unit building in Wetaskiwin. Wayne looked at management's flat-out refusal based on a lack of funds, and with a software background, he just refused to accept that budget impasse. He realized something pretty brilliant. The building didn't actually need government money if it could leverage an entirely different, hidden asset. Wayne basically became the architect of an ingenious, bottom-up solution.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Data Cooperative Solution.
So the crucial point is this core concept, the tenant data cooperative. This is the intellectual anchor of Wayne's whole self-funding proposal. Instead of looking at the building as this, drain on financial resources, he looked at it as a data generator. A tenant data cooperative is essentially a framework where the tenants themselves collectively authorize the collection of their anonymized building data, and in exchange, they share in the commercial revenue that their data actually generates.
Let's walk through how this self-funding loop actually functions in the real world, because it's super clever. First step, a technology partner installs the necessary tech. So, the security cameras and the building-wide Wi-Fi. Next, that system passively generates a massive amount of anonymized data about the building. Then, that data gets licensed commercially to outside entities who desperately need it. And finally, the revenue from those commercial licenses completely covers the cost of the security system, and any extra cash flows right back to the tenants. It's a fully closed, self-sustaining loop.
Now, you might be wondering, what abstract data are we really talking about here? Wayne grounds this very specifically. We're talking about occupancy patterns, foot traffic analytics, energy usage, and environmental monitoring. This is highly valuable anonymized information. Think about it. Urban planners, municipal services, insurance companies, smart building developers, they literally pay top dollar for real-world analytics exactly like this. Wayne's brilliant insight was that the seniors were already generating this valuable resource. They just weren't capturing a dime of its value.
Which brings us to Section 3, pitching the Alberta government.
Wayne didn't just present this to his local building manager. He took the idea all the way to the top. And this brilliantly illustrates his strategy. Notice how he pitched this exact same core idea to three completely different silos all at once. In May 2026, he sent 3 targeted letters. To the Minister of Technology and Innovation, he framed the project around data sovereignty and proving everyday Albertans can participate in the AI economy. Then, to the Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services, he framed it as a resident safety solution with a zero-cost model that could easily scale across all government housing. And finally, to the CEOs of TELUS, he pitched it as a way to access an underserved market with a real-world smart building pilot. It is the exact same 51-unit pilot, just perfectly tailored to 3 totally different agendas.
But really, the absolute masterstroke of the pitch, the ultimate hook that ties all these government letters together, is this one simple phrase: zero cost to the government of Alberta. By creating a system that pays for itself through data revenue, Wayne completely bypassed the need for any government capital expenditure. He literally removed the #1 objection that building management used to block the security cameras in the very first place.
All right, Section 4, partnering with TELUS. Obviously, a data cooperative needs a strong technology backbone, and Wayne identified the absolute perfect corporate partner to make this a reality. In his pitch to TELUS CEOs Victor Dotting and Darren Entwistle, Wayne lays out objectively why they are the perfect fit. First, TELUS already has existing wiring in the building, and almost all 51 tenants are already paying TELUS customers anyway. Second, this lines up perfectly with their existing Connecting for Good and Smart Energy for Good social initiatives. Third, they just recently launched a new AI-powered smart home assistant that integrates sensors and video. And finally, TELUS had already committed a massive $70 billion Canadian infrastructure investment through 2029. Wayne is essentially saying to them, look, you already have all the pieces. I'm just giving you the framework to snap them together in a market you're currently underserving.
In that proposal to TELUS, Wayne includes a single question that highlights a fundamental paradigm shift in how we think about economics. He writes, what if security pays for itself? He shifts the whole conversation entirely away from who's going to foot the bill to actually recognizing that the residents themselves hold the currency, their own data, to fund their safety and connectivity. It's a huge shift in perspective.
Let's move to Section 5, the Canadian Data Dividend, and see how this builds into something much, much bigger.
This takes us from a hyper-local, single-building solution into a sweeping national philosophy. Wayne makes it crystal clear to the ministers and to TELUS that this 51-unit building in Wet'isuwin, it's just a proof of concept. He calls the bigger vision the Canadian Data Dividend. Here's the overarching philosophy. It's a policy principle proposing that every single Canadian generates data with real commercial value, and therefore they should receive earned compensation for it. And Wayne is incredibly careful to clarify here, this is not a government transfer. It is not a handout. It is not a social benefit. It is earned compensation for a valuable resource that everyday people are producing simply by going about their daily lives.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between our current digital economy and Davy's proposed paradigm. In the traditional model, we give our highly valuable data away to massive corporations entirely for free, right? Just in exchange for using their apps or services. But in the proposed model, the data dividend, that value is actually captured and returned as earned compensation directly to the data creators. The people who are actually generating the value finally get their cut of the profits.
To make this fairly abstract concept super tangible to the Alberta government, Wayne leans heavily into a resource metaphor. He writes that data is the resource of the 21st century. He essentially compares the digital data generated by citizens to Alberta's rich physical oil reserves. Think about it. Alberta already operates on the fundamental understanding that physical resources generated within its borders should benefit Albertans through royalty frameworks. Wayne is simply arguing that we have to apply that exact same logic to the digital economy. If you produce the resource, you should benefit from it, period.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. A 67-year-old retired software developer in a senior's home couldn't get a basic security camera approved. So, what did he do? He designed a self-funding digital cooperative that completely reimagines the economics of the internet. It really forces all of us to ask, is data truly the resource of the 21st century? And if it is, well, shouldn't you be paid for yours? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.